Shall we start? How are we doing? Adam, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on board today. And Maria here. I think Maria, you have the editing rights, so you will be sort of allowing us to share the screens, or shall we just share the screens as we go along?
Yeah. So you can start. We are looking at your screen at the moment.
Oh, fantastic! You can see my. So I wasn't sure who can see my screen now. So if you can,
everyone can see it.
Oh, fantastic! That's even better. Okay, shall we start then?
Yeah. Okay. It's 4 p.m. sharp, so off we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. It's a pleasure to have you on board. So I'm just trying to see how many people we have at the moment. So we have quite a few. That's really, really good. So we have about 1 hour and a half to go, and we'll have a Q&A session as well. Я также говорю по-русски, поэтому если есть вопросы, please do feel free to ask them in Russian as well as in English. And I'm sorry for mixing up the languages. So for today's webinar, I'll do the introduction talk about Warwick, just to say hello, to say where we are, just to set the context a little bit, so you guys are familiar to what part of the UK you are talking at the moment. And then we'll have our academic who is here with us, Adam Chester, who will be speaking about artificial intelligence, and will take us into that fascinating world a little bit later. And you'll be able to ask your questions to Adam as well. Adam would be receiving your questions in English, please. And then we have Maria, who's joined us from Moscow, from Skolkovo, and she'll be telling you about global education scholarship, how you can get the funding, and what programs are available for you. Okay, so that's the agenda, and feel free to use your chat function as well to ask any questions that you have. So that's here. And before we start, I just really wanted to say hello to you and sort of meet you and see where you're from and what you're doing. And it's very difficult to do a webinar, and I can see a video of myself and my slides, but I can't really see you guys, and that makes my life a little bit nervous. So if you can type where you're from, what city in Russia, or if you're abroad, where you're currently geographically, that'd be really good. Fantastic. Oh, wow, fantastic. So it's not only Moscow, St. Petersburg. That's really great. Daniil has joined us, one of the first people who joined us. Fantastic. So Moscow, Seattle. Okay, that's really good. So looks like the majority of you are from Moscow. Okay, and now guys, can you please let us know if you're still studying, and if you're studying, maybe your subject area, and perhaps if you're working, maybe you can just say that you're working, just to know what kind of stage of life you're at the moment. Oh, fantastic! So we have some teachers. So Azad, are you teaching? What are you teaching? Sort of IT and computer science subjects? MBA, fantastic. Hospitality. Okay. Okay, somebody's Daniil is studying law.
I believe we have a global education winner too. Svetoslav, if I'm not mistaken, he's our winner. Am I right?
That'd be really interesting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. So
great.
really nice mix of people, and hopefully you guys can take something out of the webinar. My name's Lana. I'm from the University of Warwick. I'm based at the University of Warwick in the UK. And before we start, I just wanted to sort of find out whether you know about us at all, what you know about the University of Warwick. So you know that we are in the UK, that's for sure. That'd be a good place to start. Does anybody have an idea how old we are? If you can type your answers in the chat, please, as well, that'd be really good. Any ideas at all? Okay. Okay, somebody, Azad is saying we're 500, 150, 300. Okay. We are actually only 50 years old. We celebrated our 50th birthday last year, so we're quite a modern university, quite a progressive and dynamic environment here. But we have achieved quite a lot in that 50 years. So I'm gonna speak a little bit about that a little bit later. Does anybody have an idea how far from London we are at all? If anybody's been to the UK, any ideas where we are geographically? Just a wild guess, really. Center. How far from London? 1 kilometer? Maybe on the train. How long does it take to get to us from London? Yeah, we are actually not in London. We are an hour and a half from London. So if you want to get to Warwick, which is located near Coventry City Centre, we are sort of an hour and a half from London. So not that far, but not exactly in London. We have a regional airport, which will be Birmingham International Airport. And last question, sorry guys for torturing you. Last question, how international are we? So what's the percentage of international students that we have on campus? Any thoughts on that? 25? Azad is making a really wild guess, but it's very, very close. We actually have 30% of international students on campus. In total, I think it's about 23,000 that we have on campus. Thank you very much for your answers, guys. So that's in fact our campus. That's the sort of view from above. That's what it looks like. We're a campus university. We're located outside of a city center. So it's like a small student city, if you like, but everything you need will be on campus. That's where we are geographically. You can see that we are in the middle of England, very conveniently located 1 hour and a half from London, 20 minutes from Birmingham International Airport, 25 minutes from Birmingham City Centre. 35 minutes away from Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare's birthplace. We're not in Warwick, we're 15 minutes away from Warwick, and the closest city would be Coventry, which is 10 minutes away by sort of bus. Leamington Spa. It's a really nice sort of spa town located outside of London as well, 20 minutes away. In terms of our reputation, like I mentioned, we are only 50 years old, where we've consistently been in the top 10 domestic rankings in the UK and top 100 universities in the world, with 87% of our research being internationally excellent. And in 2015, we were University of the Year. So I'm moving closely to sort of introduce our academic Adam. And before I do that, I'm just going to mention that we have four departments, four faculties, Faculty of Arts, Science, Social Sciences, and Medicine. And Adam actually is joining us from Computer Science Department. And I hope you will enjoy your webinar, and I hope you'll have quite a lot of questions afterwards, because I think Adam will be ready to answer them. Adam, off to you. I think I'm gonna mute myself now. I think, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you.
How do I mute myself? I have no idea how to mute myself. Oh, there we go.
Right. 1 second. So, welcome to my part of the presentation, I guess. I really want to look at artificial intelligence and really sort of think about where we are at the moment, where we're going, and perhaps where things might end up. And in doing so, I think we could have a really interesting time. If you've got any questions, pop them in the box and I'll answer them all at the end, if that's okay. So as part of the session outline, I want to look at sort of what people are saying about the current state of AI and perhaps discuss some of the sort of common sense problems that humans are very good at and do really well, but computers and machines aren't so good at. And then I thought I'd try and classify some of the risks posed by artificial intelligence. I happen to think it's a great thing. I'm very excited, but nevertheless, there are a number of potential issues of concern. So have a look, sort of 2015, there's a nice video on YouTube which I want to show you guys. Here we are. It's by Boston Dynamics. They're a robotics company out in the States. They got bought by Google a little while ago, and this is a video they took last year. So
we've outfitted it with a manipulator, which gives it a little more autonomy because it can now, it's not stuck in the lab, it can go into the design room. We've been also working on humanoid robots. Some of the ones that Gil showed from the DRC were built by us, and they're derived from these models we're showing here. But again, our focus is on balance and dynamics, and working a little bit the way people and animals do, where you move quickly in order to keep yourself stabilized if you're disturbed. So we use that rock bed as a means of stabilizing. And sometimes we just kick the robot or use a weight. We're interested in getting this robot out into the world. Out in the world is just a totally different challenge than in the lab. You can't predict what it's going to be like. This isn't completely out in the world because there's that power tether, but we're working on a version that doesn't have that. And, you know, all kinds of stuff happens out there, and we're making pretty good progress on making it so it has mobility that's sort of within shooting range of yours. I'm not saying it can do everything you can do, but you can imagine if we keep pushing, we'll get there.
So if that is the state of the art, I don't think we've got too much to fear right now. You know, it's not too daunting, but lots of eminent scientists actually think that there could be a real problem. So this actual demonstration put out a lot of alarm amongst the scientific community. You've got Stephen Hawking, of course, one of the world's greatest physicists, suggesting that humans who are limited by slow biological evolution couldn't compete and might be superseded by artificial intelligence. And that's quite a daunting warning. And actually, Stephen Hawking, Steve Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple, and Elon Musk, of course, SpaceX and Tesla Motors, issued an open letter to an international joint conference, which suggested there was a real warning. They said that the ethical dilemma of bestowing moral responsibilities on robots calls for rigorous safety and preventative measures that are fail-safe, or the threats are too significant to risk. I think a lot of us have watched those science fiction films where robots have taken over, and people are worried, and they sort of start attacking the human population. And it's kind of working out, well, how can we prevent that happening? Because of course, it's not good enough for one group of people to accept that robots will do no harm, while another builds these sort of huge robot armies. So it does need international cooperation. Well, are these concerns founded or unfounded? Well, in terms of sort of artificial intelligence, things like perception, learning, reasoning, or decision making, it's actually really commonplace. Lots of systems do this automatically as part of our sort of daily life in the technology fabric. So we've got GPS systems that rely on sort of algorithms for route optimization. We have Siri or Cortana on our mobile phones that actually understand our verbal instructions and can act on those accordingly. And we've got machine vision that recognizes pictures we take on our smartphones. And internet search engines rely on subsystems, things like automatic translation. I read a lot of internet articles, the majority in English, but if there's some interesting technical articles elsewhere, it's nice to be able to say to Google, translate this Chinese or Russian or Japanese into English for me. And I'll admit some of the answers are pretty amusing, but it's nice to be able to at least get most of the content out of it. So the other applications are slightly more striking. We've got aircraft that fly themselves through fly-by-wire technologies. We've got drones who can recognize targets at sort of 5,000 feet and above. And semi-autonomous cars are emerging at the high end of the market. You know, thinking about things like Tesla's autopilot, you know, to actually sort of on a highway let it drive itself. I'm not sure I personally feel too comfortable about that. You know, I wouldn't sort of hand over control to a vehicle, just in case, really. I like being in control when I'm driving, and I actually quite enjoy driving, so I don't want to take all the fun out of it. And artificial intelligence is beginning to come through into the sort of medical imaging fields, whereby it can help physicians identify tumours when looking at scan pictures. Data sets can identify high-risk patients, and it can support things like education and commerce. You know, if you buy one thing, maybe you'll buy another. In terms of sort of looking at what can happen, we've got some visual recognition. Now, currently these work with fairly static images. So, picture on the left at the top there is of a laundrette. So it can identify the washers and the person taking the picture. In the middle, we see it's identified the bus, the car, and the traffic light signals overhead. And the horse, the person, and the helmet are identified correctly. But of course, it needs to learn what these things are. And that's part of the challenge. Identification is the first task, and then sort of classification would be the second. And of course, that kind of visual planning and optimization is kind of useful if we are going to have sort of delivery drones. If your next online delivery is flown in rather than be delivered by the mail service, it's going to need to know where to go and where to put things. And speech recognition, autonomous vehicles, we sort of spoke about a little earlier. But we've got human intelligence on one hand, and we've got artificial intelligence on the other. But if the artificial intelligence becomes intelligent enough to innovate, then I think there's potential for an explosion. I mean, this superintelligence concept has been discussed many times. I mean, some scientists believe that, you know, as soon as we get this artificial intelligence, this rapid process of iteration will produce a superintelligence that will follow shortly after. And there are various definitions of this. So things are computers performing tasks far more intelligently than humans. So things like searching large documents. It could learn how to search documents itself and search them better than humans can. We might enter this situation where computers are generally perceived to be more intelligent than humans. I think at the moment people are skeptical. If you asked if you went to a computer, typed in your medical symptoms, I have a headache and I'm sweating, and the computer might come up with something outrageous, saying chop off your leg, which wouldn't be great. But in future, perhaps it will be the case that a computer is a much better doctor than a person in the room. And finally, where we see this sort of intelligence explosions, computers becoming sort of intelligent and then inventing themselves or creating better intelligences, for want of a better word, to sort of increase their own sort of capabilities. And I guess much of this concern comes back to control. I mean, do the computers control things like weapon systems or power stations or financial markets or biological engineering experiments? In all of those cases, they could have catastrophic effects on the human population. I mean, how much ultimate control do we have? Well, at the moment, if something decided to take over, I guess the power system is about the only thing we could take away from it. And we're going to discuss 5 classes of risk a little bit later on. So let's talk a little about common sense, because this is a bit they haven't really got yet. So common sense reasoning and common sense knowledge. So who is taller, Prince William or his son? So very simple sentence. We're asking which of these 2 subjects is tallest, Prince William or his son, who's about 3 years old. Clearly, we all know the answer if we saw a picture and knew who these people were, that Prince William, obviously being the father, is taller. A slightly more complicated example, if you put a pin in a carrot, will it result in a hole in the pin or in the carrot? So, clearly we know what a pin is, and we know what a carrot is, and we push the two together, the whole is left in the carrot. But the actual sentence structure here is actually quite difficult for a machine to discern. If you push a pin in a carrot, right, what is the it? And that is the problem. So it's not a straightforward sort of grammatical exercise in that case. And things like this: can you make a salad out of a polyester shirt? So, first thoughts are, well, a salad is vegetables, and a polyester shirt is not clothing, so obviously not. But for a computer, can you do this out of this? It is a little bit more computationally intensive. It's a lot more difficult to even understand what's being asked. I mean, to achieve human-level performance in domains like natural language processing, vision and robotics, a basic knowledge of common sense in the world is necessary. And we, as humans, draw that from things like time, space, physical interaction, and other people. It's the environment that actually guides a lot of what we do. And common sense reasoning and knowledge underpins many AI tasks. And this explains kind of why progress has sometimes seemed slow. Since the first musings in artificial intelligence, people thought that we could have smart machines, and they were going to be delivered in the year 2000, back sort of 30 or 40 years ago, and then that didn't happen. And we're still at the game where we can beat a human comfortably at chess. We've just proven that AIs can beat humans at Go, which is a far more difficult game, computationally speaking. Well, hang on, we can drive a car, we can play a game, but why can't a robot make my tea in the morning? That kind of thing. But if we explore common sense and intelligence tasks, we think about sort of natural language processing, computer vision, and robotic manipulation. So in terms of natural language processing, computer science has been working on this since the 1960s. It's not a new problem. It's been discussed, sort of, disambiguation, trying to sort out things and stop the confusion in the context of machine translation. Common sense reasoning is required to solve this problem. It's only really people at the moment that can actually pull out sort of what is sensible and what is meant by statements. For example, the city council refused the demonstrators a permit because they feared violence. Well, to what does the they refer? Are we talking about the council feared the violence or the demonstrators feared the violence? It's not obvious. So linguistic views do not help here. We need knowledge of the real world. And we both know, or we all know rather, that the council fear the violence. That's why they didn't issue a permit. Solutions such as Google Translate rely on nearby words to try and solve this problem. It's a sort of word proximity approach. While IBM's Watson employs an alternative solution based on reading a corpus or a sort of library of information and tries to ascertain or infer rather a meaning from those. But if we have a look at computer vision, if we look at this scene, okay, what can we see? Well, quite clearly we can see some lamps. There's a sort of a potted plants next to the table in the center. There's some side tables, a large coffee table. There's a rug, 4 pictures on the wall, some cushions, and a few soft chairs. I think we all can see that. And I think part of the problem is that sort of, common sense allows us to identify these things, even though they're partially obscured. So, we can only see about half of the coffee tables, yet we know they're there. The rug, well, there's furniture on it, but we still know that's a rug. And the problem is that current techniques sort of match templates or notions of an image with the elements in the view. And the current state of the art still isn't able to solve occluded objects, which are partially hidden. In terms of robotic manipulation, we really want to sort of consider that sort of robot we saw at the beginning, right? Okay, so it can walk across a sort of slightly uneven ground in a lab. We saw it walking in a forest and it tripped and got a little bit confused. But how should it react if a tree falls, say, on a particularly windy day? These dynamic environments can be very challenging because they can't be pre-planned or pre-programmed. Common sense reasoning and knowledge allow us to process these uncommon yet predictable events So if a tree falls, then we need to think of a way around it or try and move out of the way if it's happening in a real-time sort of way. And we're able to demonstrate some success with this. So things like taxonomic reasoning, so that's categorizing things and dealing with their sort of properties. So for example, here in this diagram, we can see that there is a sort of a classification of animals. So a dog is a mammal, and a mammal is an animal. And of course, mammals are furry and birds can fly. So fairly straightforward stuff. And we can begin to classify and sort of infer things about these relationships based on this taxonomic reasoning. But some taxonomies are very simple, as in this example. Things like the animal kingdom falls into a nice taxonomy, but others are a lot less clear. For example, a theory of narrative. How is storytelling understood? And I think grammar is a sort of limiting sort of factor on that, but still there are many ways to say the same thing. And then of course very plain language, as we sort of read as 3 or 4 or 5-year-olds. The wind was blowing, great, and there was a strong wind, as we sort of move up the linguistic scale to that howling wind outside that was like a hurricane. So these similes and metaphors drop in. The complexity of the language increases and actually makes it very hard to sort of break down by a sort of computer or a sort of automatic process. But in terms of successes, there are lots of other things we can do other than taxonomic reasoning. Things like temporal reasoning, which has a ground truth in the common sense, and they're generally very amenable to computing solutions. So sort of timeliness becomes very important. So the Battle of Gettysburg occurred during the Civil War, and the Revolutionary War was over before the Civil War began. So the Battle of Gettysburg occurred after the Revolutionary War. Makes perfect sense. And things like this, IBM's Watson is very good at. But it's only good at it provided that the source, in this case Wikipedia, is accurate and linguistically very tight. So it's very clearly structured, it's very plainly spoken, and is available. And we see similar success with actions and changes occurring. So if we put this on, we have a put plan on hot plate, wait, break egg into pan, wait, serve the egg after it's cooked. So, quite clearly, where there's a clear sort of action and some sort of change, we can sort of see that. But that's almost catering to the machine rather than it working for us. But approaches like this work quite well for things like robotic planning. But there are some recently impressive results in this kind of thing. So, web mining and the accumulation of knowledge looks promising. Effectively, these machines can analyze text and draw connections between things so that they understand things. Crowdsourced approaches, so you can ask experts to contribute to bases of knowledge that could be shared across several sort of different artificial intelligence implementations. But now I think, given that we'd like these things to be better, we need them to be safe. And I've sort of put together 5 classes of risk, which I think are pretty important and should be really considered quite carefully. So in terms of program error, I know some of you are in IT from Lana's questions earlier. And, I write software. I do it for fun at a weekend sometimes. And I am very familiar with software errors, things not working as expected. Some software errors do kill people. It's a sad fact, but aircraft software, trains, is a serious sort of issues. So we do need to be quite sort of rigorous with our sort of software design approaches. Safety critical non-artificial intelligence systems are subject to very rigorous quality assurance. So software systems for NASA and Roscosmos are subject to a significant level of interrogation and inspection before they're actually released. And in artificial intelligence terms, we might think of this as guaranteeing properties of machine learning methods. So, this is expected behavior, this is within the bounds of what we expect, would be a good way. Or it might be responding appropriately to unforeseen circumstances or confusing input. So if you have an autonomous vehicle that does something odd, you might just say, well, slow down, stop, pull over, and reset, rather than, oh, this accelerator seems to be slow, so we'll keep speeding up and keep speeding up. And autonomous systems introduce self-monitoring to ensure that the actions are consistent with the intentions of the designer. So it's important that these things are put together and thought about. The second class of risk, I guess, is a cyber attack. Criminals and adversaries are constantly attacking computers with viruses and malware. Well, artificial intelligence algorithms are also vulnerable to these because the inputs can be modified, or the actual behavior at runtime. And we need to consider what new risks are exposed, because it could be things like a manipulation of a training set that would alter the characteristics or the outputs. It might be the modification of preferences and trade-offs. So it's actually altering the way in which it works. And to sort of combat this, some systems are being used to identify characteristic fingerprints of malware and cyber attack, which involves the sort of process of artificial intelligence monitoring itself for uncharacteristic behavior. But this is a significant risk with drones and vehicles. So we do need to consider it and harden our systems appropriately. The source of apprentice. So in this case, humans characteristically state things in many different ways. You might sort of, let's take the example of filling a bathtub, and assuming you have some sort of voice-activated artificial intelligence in your house, you might say, fill the bathtub. And then it would proceed to fill it and fill it and fill it and fill it, and continue filling it until it overflowed with far too much water. So things like this, get me to the airport as quickly as possible. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, does this mean that the Uber taxi you called drives at 125 miles an hour and jumps all the red lights? Well, that's probably not what we meant. We meant drive as quickly as you can, but within the legal rules. And many sort of dystopian scenarios are variations on this theme. Humans fail to correctly instruct the intelligence on how it should behave, and it goes on to do a myriad of dangerous things. And I think this boils down to interpreting what people intend. It's not a new problem in computer science. The computer just needs to analyze the response in relation to what is judged normal behavior. Humans stop and ask for directions. Perhaps we should be programming artificial intelligence systems to do the same. Perhaps you have a system that's dealing stocks, and you might be doing that, but then occasionally it might sort of say, okay, does this seem sensible? Should I be buying all these shares in Google? And there's the idea of shared autonomy. So many of these exciting prospects exist because of the collaboration between human and machine. Devices that might allow the blind to see and the deaf to hear, helping people remember things and plan, and things like Fold It, which is an online collaborative game, which has been credited with helping scientists discover the structure of the AIDS virus. In real-time collaboration between artificial intelligence and humans is kind of difficult. Because you want to load in your data or have it sort of reading data from somewhere, and actually humans will want to interact on a very sort of interruption-based basis, and I guess it boils down to that control issue of who is in charge and when. And the idea is the concept of drift and goals change. So if you start out solving one problem and you provide some answers that lead it in a different direction, then perhaps you're pulling it off course. And is that acceptable? And of course, there are broader concerns. So, there are risks related to the influence that competent autonomy provides segments of society. So, societies that possess armies or autonomous drones and soldiers have a significant advantage of those who do not. Organizations which possess sophisticated economic instruments, things like algorithms of trading, are a significant advantage to those who do not. And there are potentially huge socioeconomic issues which themselves only divide humanity to the haves and have-nots. So if you're trading, high-frequency trading algorithms can have a huge advantage over sort of traditional sort of stock-based markets, day traders, for instance. So it is very difficult to sort of balance those concerns, and I'm not sure what the answer is to these problems, but thankfully I'm just a lowly computer scientist. And things like GDPs, median wages, life expectancies, populations, safety and security are all issues around this sort of topic. So those are the main sort of categories of risk, I think, and I think it does open up a world of interesting questions. In terms of reading, I'd recommend sort of some papers from the ACM. I'd recommend The Rise of Concerns About AI and Common Sense Reasoning and Knowledge in AI as further reading activities. So if you've got any questions, feel free to throw them in. And if not, I will hand over to Maria.
I'm sure that guys do have questions. And again, if you have, please type them in chat or Q&A. Yeah. As Lana always says, no question is silly.
Any questions at all, guys? And if you have questions afterwards, maybe after the webinar, we could probably collate them in an email and maybe send them to Adam and then circulate them to you guys afterwards. So yeah, feel free.
I've sent a copy of the presentation to Lana, and I'm sure it'll go out to Maria as well, or whoever's in charge of the email list. I'm sure you'll all get a copy. So I think Philip's got. I think
Maria already has a copy.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yay, fantastic. Okay, so off to you, Maria, then. Thank you very much, Adam, for your time. Are you with us for the rest of the session?
Yes, I will be. I'll be here.
Fantastic. So maybe somebody will come up with more questions.
Yeah, it seems to me that Philip is typing his question, but while he's doing it, I guess I should start. Hang on, I'll share my presentation. Итак, друзья, сейчас я расскажу вам про программу «Глобальное образование». Я надеюсь, что вы про нее уже много знаете, но вдруг у нас сегодня есть те, кто про нее ничего не слышал, поэтому давайте начнем. «Глобальное образование» — это государственная программа Министерства образования и науки Российской Федерации. Минобр является официальным заказчиком. Мы, Московская школа управления Сколково, где я сейчас нахожусь, являемся официальным оператором программы. Программа была запущена в декабре 2014 года. Пусть вас не пугает то, что срок реализации программы заканчивается в 2016 году. На данный момент срок продления программы обсуждается, причем обсуждается продление вплоть до 2020 года. Поэтому не пугайтесь, мы не закрываемся, мы все еще ждем ваших заявок, будем рады вас профинансировать. Давайте сразу поговорим о приятной части нашей программы, про грант. Количество денег, которое один победитель может получить на 1 год, составляет 2 763 000 рублей в год. Что это покрывает? Это покрывает tuition fees и living expenses. В living expenses может входить проезд до места обучения и обратно, проживание, питание, медицинская страховка, учебная литература, реагенты, реактивы, если вам они нужны, все что угодно. За часть гранта на living expenses вы не отчитываетесь. Можете тратить их по своему усмотрению абсолютно, но вы должны будете предоставить квитанцию об оплате tuition fees, чтобы мы понимали, что у вас нет никакого долга за оплату обучения, что все отлично. Если вы поступаете на бюджет, тогда можем выделить вам 1 380 000 на сопутствующие расходы, на living expenses. И опять же в этом случае вы не отчитываетесь за них. Так что очень, по-моему, отлично для вас. Пожалуйста, да, не присылайте нам, не собирайте чеки, не присылайте их нам папочкой. Нам все равно, как вы потратили. Главное, пожалуйста, планируйте свой бюджет, распределяйте грант так, чтобы вам хватило. Давайте поговорим об основных параметрах программы. Программа финансирует только graduate level и 3 уровня подготовки – магистратура, аспирантура и ординатура. По 5 направлениям обучения – наука, образование, инженерия, медицина и управление в социальном секторе. У нас 32 специальности в рамках этих 5 направлений. Вы можете поехать в 32 страны мира, и у нас 288 ведущих зарубежных университетов. Вы выбираете сами, мы вас ни в коем случае не ограничиваем. Одним из условий программы является работа по окончании обучения в одной из российской организаций. Всего на данный момент уже 559 компаний у нас. Про это я расскажу немного позднее. Здесь вы можете видеть карту. Помечены все те страны, в которых есть наши университеты, с которыми мы сотрудничаем. University of Warwick находится в UK, в Англии. Вы можете видеть, что эта страна отмечена также. У нас здесь немного подробнее представлено по количеству университетов в каждой стране. Несмотря на то, что в Великобритании не самое большое количество университетов, она является у нас рекордсменом по количеству победителей. Ну, это неудивительно. Как я уже сказала, всего у нас 288 университетов. Полный список университетов по странам, по направлениям подготовки вы можете найти на нашем сайте educationglobal.ru в разделе «Участнику, университеты и образовательные программы». Немного подробнее расскажу про направления и программы обучения. Как я уже сказала, направлений у нас всего 5: наука, инженерия, образование, медицина и управление в социальном секторе. Хочу вам сразу сказать, не пугайтесь, пожалуйста, это не полный список программ. Всего будет 5 направлений, как на этом слайде, так и в нашем утвержденном перечне, а вот программ будет гораздо больше. Всего у нас 72 листа, 4 со списком программ. Я уверена, что вы что-нибудь себе подберете. Полный перечень можно посмотреть на нашем сайте, все там же educationglobal.ru в разделе «Участнику, университеты и образовательные программы». Нас всегда спрашивают, как мы выбираем университеты. При выборе университетов и программ мы руководствуемся следующими рейтингами: QS World University Ranking, Time High Education Times, шанхайский рейтинг. Все университеты должны находиться в топ-300 хотя бы 2 из 3 рейтингов. А что касается специальностей, все специальности находятся в топ-200 US Subject Ranking. Поэтому наш выбор не случайно. Каждый год мы старательно пересматриваем для вас рейтинги, чтобы ничего не упустить. Как я уже сказала, у нас финансируется только graduate level, это магистратура, аспирантура и ординатура. Грант не выделяется на стажировки, visiting research, visiting student, Erasmus programs, которые длятся всего лишь несколько месяцев, допустим. Нельзя подавать на программы двойных дипломов, если один из университетов не входит в наш список. Нельзя, к сожалению, обучаться одновременно в российском и зарубежном университете. Никаких certificate programs также, пожалуйста, очень внимательно проверяйте, прежде чем подавать на грант. Что нужно, чтобы стать кандидатом программы «Глобальное образование»? У вас должно быть гражданство Российской Федерации. Может подойти также двойное гражданство, если одно из них российское. Пожалуйста. У вас должен быть как минимум бакалавр или специалитет. Причем нам не важно, российский это бакалавр или зарубежный. Повторюсь, у вас может быть уже степень кандидата наук, допустим. Главное, чтобы был как минимум бакалавр. Также у вас должен быть unconditional offer из того университета, в который вы, собственно, собираетесь поехать учиться. Этот университет должен быть в нашем утвержденном списке. Список вы знаете, где можно найти на нашем сайте. И вы должны быть согласны вернуться в Россию по окончании вашего обучения, чтобы поработать на протяжении 3 лет. Ни больше, ни меньше. Мы заявки принимаем круглый год. Вы можете подать заявку прямо сейчас, пока вы меня слушаете. Можете подать вечером, через неделю, когда хотите. Но у нас всего 4 конкурсных отбора. Первый отбор 2016 года закрылся 13 марта. 30 марта прошло заседание наблюдательного совета программы во главе с Ливановым. У нас 73 победителя в этом отборе. Мы очень сильно увеличили показатели по сравнению с прошедшим годом. Вот пока еще не все подписали соглашение, но скоро будет понятно, сколько в итоге у нас победителей по факту в первом отборе. Сейчас второй отбор в самом разгаре, он закроется 5 июня в 2016 году. Поторопитесь. Если вы хотите успеть поехать учиться в Warwick, то нужно торопиться и подавать документы на поступление. Вы еще успеете получить unconditional offer до 5 июня и загрузить его в личный кабинет на нашем сайте. Следующий отбор, третий, закрывается 21 августа, и самый последний отбор закрывается 6 ноября. Поэтому, если, друзья, вы хотите поехать учиться в 2017 году и получить финансирование по нашей программе, пожалуйста, начинайте уже заниматься этим процессом, регистрируйтесь, получайте номер в электронной очереди, подгружайте все те документы, которые у вас уже есть, и активно поступайте. Всю эту информацию вы можете также найти на нашем сайте в разделе «Участников». Когда вы нажимаете кнопочку «Подать заявку» на нашем сайте, после проверки ваших документов начинается так называемый конкурсный отбор. Сейчас квота пока не выбрана, поэтому сейчас все, что важно, помимо соответствия вашей программы, направления обучения и университета утвержденным спискам, это место в электронной очереди. Кто первый зарегистрировался, тот, соответственно, поближе, у того будет больше баллов. Но, повторюсь, это так только пока квота не выбрана. Сейчас мы увеличиваем показатели, поэтому, друзья, если вы хотите успеть получить место и финансирование, пожалуйста, занимайтесь этим прямо сейчас. Немножко о порядке участия в программе. Как я уже сказала, вы регистрируетесь на нашем сайте educationglobal.ru, загружайте туда сканы всех документов. К нам приезжать не нужно, к нам вы приедете только после того, как вас признают победителем, и нужно будет подписывать соглашение. После того, как закрывается электронная очередь, проходит конкурсный отбор, выходит протокол заседания наблюдательного совета программы с вашим именем, вы подписываете соглашение, и в течение 30 дней вам перечисляется грант в российских рублях на российский счет. Перечисляется единовременно на год. Если вы стали победителем программы, не нужно будет каждый год заново проходить конкурс. Если у вас программа длится, допустим, 3 года, то если вы один раз стали победителем, все 3 года перед началом учебного года вам будет приходить финансирование. После того, как вы получите диплом в вашем университете, я имею в виду зарубежном, вам нужно будет в течение 30 дней со дня получения диплома вернуться в Россию. Конечно, мы не будем вас встречать с баннерами в аэропорту, но мы все проверим. Проверим печати о пересечении границы в паспорте. Друзья, мы не грин-картовая программа, поэтому отнеситесь, пожалуйста, к этому серьезно. И как только вы вернетесь в Россию, у вас будет 3 года, чтобы, прошу прощения, 3 месяца, чтобы трудоустроиться на 3 года. Немножко расскажу о условиях. Перед тем, как вас официально признают победителем, вы должны будете подписать соглашение. Мы рекомендуем всем кандидатам изучить соглашение заранее. Оно висит на нашем сайте, мы прикрепили вам ссылочку. В открытом доступе, пожалуйста, можете проконсультироваться у юриста, если вам так спокойнее будет. Мы ни в коем случае не заставляем вас ничего подписывать. Вы имеете право отказаться, даже если вас признают победителем. Поэтому всем рекомендуем, пожалуйста, изучите соглашение, чтобы вы знали, под чем вы подписываетесь. Мы будем просить вас, если вы станете победителем, предоставлять отчетность во время обучения и вашей работы. Тоже относитесь к этому серьезно, вам выделяется финансирование из государственного бюджета, поэтому мы имеем право просить вас демонстрировать нам, что все хорошо, вы учитесь, у вас нет хвостов, да, и вы все еще работаете. Как я уже сказала, вам нужно будет возвратиться в Россию в течение 30 дней после получения диплома и в течение 3 месяцев трудоустроиться и проработать 3 года в одной из организаций. 3 года, ни меньше, ни больше, зарплату будут платить. Вы будете договариваться с работодателем об условиях работы самостоятельно. Опять же, никто вас не будет заставлять ничего подписывать, если вы не захотите. Если случится так, что вдруг вы не захотите трудоустраиваться, или вы не захотите возвращаться в Россию, или, не дай Боже, вы не закончите обучение, тогда вам нужно будет уплатить штраф. Вы будете возвращать ту сумму, которую получите к тому моменту, и в двукратном, прошу прощения, размере также будет штраф. Мы думаем, что в ваших интересах все-таки закончить и вернуться в Россию и трудоустроиться. У нас на данный момент 559 компаний в утвержденном списке. Список можно найти на нашем сайте educationglobal.ru в разделе «Трудоустройство». Список этот дополняется на регулярной основе. Вы можете самостоятельно предложить свою какую-либо организацию, которую вы, допустим, уже договорились работать по окончании вашего обучения. И после заседания наблюдательного совета эта компания будет внесена в наш утвержденный список. О порядке внесения организации вы можете почитать также на нашем сайте, все подробно вам расписали. Иногда случается так, что по каким-либо причинам вам нужно поменять место работы. Вы можете сделать это не более 2 раз за 3 года. Ну, всякое бывает, мы понимаем. И если вы 2 раза поменяете место работы, на вас никакие штрафы налагаться не будут. И мы всячески помогаем вам в трудоустройстве участников. Вам трудоустроиться. Сейчас я скажу, как именно. Мы вас анкетируем, как только вы уезжаете на учебу. Просим заполнить вас своеобразные чарты, где бы вам больше всего хотелось работать, где бы меньше всего, где бы совсем не хотелось. Мы рассылаем ваше резюме в профильные организации, просим вас записывать видеообращения к будущим работодателям и загружаем это на YouTube, где наши работодатели могут спокойно это посмотреть и, возможно, найти себе подходящего кандидата. Наш партнер HeadHunter размещает, также рассылает ваше резюме, абсолютно бесплатно. Мы добавляем ваше резюме в базу кадровых агентств, и только у вас есть доступ к лучшим работодателям Российской Федерации. Вот так выглядит наш раздел по трудоустройству на сайте. Опять же, все пароли и явки есть. Пожалуйста, заходите, смотрите. Даже не знаю, стоит ли говорить о преимуществах программы. Только у нас есть выбор из 32 стран мира, 288 университетов, 559 компаний. Мы принимаем круглый год заявки, независимо от времени, дня и ночи. Помогаем вам, консультируем. У нас самая большая сумма гранта, которая покрывает не только tuition fees, но и living expenses. Мы не препятствуем софинансированию со стороны университетов, как российских, если вы, допустим, туда возвращаетесь потом на работу, так и зарубежных. Пожалуйста, мы понимаем, что чем больше денег, тем, естественно, лучше. Конечно, если это не противоречит правилам той страны, куда вы едете учиться. Мы гарантируем вам, что если вы стали победителем программы, то мы отфинансируем всю длительность вашего обучения. И, опять же, вам не нужно заново подавать на грант каждый год. Только у вас доступ к лучшим работодателям Российской Федерации. Мы вас не бросаем и помогаем. И по окончании обучения вы будете одним из выпускников лучших университетов мира. Когда я сказала, что мы помогаем с консультациями, что я имела в виду? Оператор программы Московской школы управления Сколково проводит очные презентации и семинары, и вебинары, как, например, сейчас. Мы проводим их совместно с нашими университетами, агентствами, культурными образовательными центрами. Все это для вас записываем и загружаем на YouTube. Этот вебинар тоже можно будет посмотреть на YouTube. Пожалуйста, следите за нашими обновлениями. А во всех мероприятиях мы сообщаем на нашем сайте. Я дала вот здесь вам ссылочку, где это можно будет посмотреть и проверить. Также мы выкладываем все в социальные сети. Мы есть в Фейсбуке, ВКонтакте, Инстаграме. Пожалуйста, там тоже все дублируется. Мы собрали для вас рекомендации по поступлению на нашем сайте в разделе «Участнику» на educationglobal.ru. Пожалуйста, информация по поступлению, по дедлайнам, по экзаменам, различные презентации. Все для вас собрали, все ссылочки там есть. Не только мы проводим для вас мероприятия, но, как я уже сказала, наши университеты, например, университет Warwick планирует проводить pre-departure orientations летом. Если вы станете победителем, то мы будем рады вас пригласить на очные pre-departure. Пожалуйста.
Мы будем рады вас видеть и обязательно поможем вам со всеми вопросами. Так что обязательно обращайтесь к нам. Спасибо, Мария. Сори, я хотела просто jump in.
Все правильно. Также нам помогают наши сертифицированные образовательные агентства. На случай, если вам нужна помощь именно в поступлении, все контакты вы можете найти на нашем сайте в разделе «Участнику». Но ссылочку прямо на файл с контактами мы вам тоже указали. С нами сотрудничают и посольства, и международные образовательные центры, культурные в том числе. Здесь вот несколько мы вам привели для примера. Собрали для вас полезные ссылки по странам, где искать информацию о культуре, о жизни, об образовании, чтобы, если вы еще не смогли выбрать себе страну и университет, вы могли хоть как-то сориентироваться. Все в открытом доступе, пожалуйста, смотрите, пользуйтесь на здоровье. Вот так выглядит наш график мероприятий. Вот здесь была информация и про наш сегодняшний вебинар в том числе. Так выглядит раздел с рекомендациями по поступлению. Это наши контакты, educationglobal.ru, наш официальный сайт. Если у вас вдруг возникнут вопросы, которые вы не успеете мне сейчас задать, вы можете всегда их направить на global.edu.skolkovo.ru. Отвечаем в течение 3 рабочих дней. Можете всегда позвонить по бесплатному номеру для всех регионов России 8 800 50 56 23. Пожалуйста, все-таки призываем вас звонить в рабочее время по Москве, потому что иногда сложно отвечать про программу ночью. Да, мы, как я уже сказала, мы есть на Фейсбуке, есть ВКонтакте, есть на Ютубе. Ссылочка на наш Инстаграм находится в наших социальных сетях. Пожалуйста, будем рады ответить на все ваши вопросы. Сейчас тогда давайте посмотрим, какие вопросы у нас уже есть. Так.
I think we currently have a question. I just wondered if Adam is with us still. I think hello. I think we currently had a question from Philippe Grignov, who's a pupil at school, a British school in Moscow, and he was asking in regards to sort of further reading that he could do on robots and technology, sort of not stepping away from fundamental mathematics. Would there be at all sort of any from your area, Adam, or shall we direct Philippe to sort of engineering or other departments at all?
Well, I think, you know, in terms of building robots, I think engineering is the natural first choice. You know, there are several books. I think the thing about sort of robotics is actually it's quite helpful to be good with electronics in general. So things like Arduinos, you know, are very useful because essentially, you know, a robot is a set of motors and a program. So, you know, being able to program and sort of control a set of motors boils down to electronics, and I'd recommend that. And there are lots of good introductory texts on those sort of platforms, widely available. Free tutorials on the internet are generally the best sort of place and port of call. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the best way to get started. But good luck.
Okay, Philippe, are you happy? Are you happy with the answer? Hopefully he's still with us. If not, he probably will hear that on the recording. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Okay. Before we actually sort of wrap up, and if you sort of guys can I just like say really quickly about where you could go for further help. We have Just wanted to show you that if you're sort of struggling and if you're interested in Warwick, you could always find further information on our website. We also have Russian version of the website as well. You're mostly welcome to use that. We're on Facebook as Global Education as well. We're on Facebook, of course, and we are on Contakti, and you're mostly welcome to join these two social media platforms. If you would like to speak about any course that you'd like to sort of maybe apply for as part of the education global education program, you're mostly welcome to either email me. If you're interested in any courses from computer science departments, I mean postgraduate courses, I think I might put you in touch with Adam in that case if you wanted to apply for any of those. And we also have Nadia, who is our regional representative in Russia, so you're mostly welcome to email her with regards to any technical questions about your application and visas or anything like that. And yeah, I'll pass on the floor to Maria if she wanted to sort of add anything.
Yeah, it seems to me that we don't have any questions.
Sorry, I've jumped in.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much, guys. First of all, thank you very much, Lana, for suggesting to do this webinar. Thank you, Adam, for doing your brilliant presentation. It was very interesting. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, guys, for joining us, for making it. I know it's not convenient sometimes, but you made it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you everybody. It's been great it's been a great webinar actually so far. Really insightful, and thank you, Adam, for making that interesting presentation. I feel like I want to go and read a little bit more about artificial intelligence now. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Bye everybody. Have a good evening. Bye bye.